This is the Last Minute Blues Podcast with Jeff Burton, Donnie Fandango, and former Blues defenseman Jamie Rivers. Powered by Together Credit Union, empowering you to achieve your financial goals.
It is the Last Minute Blues Podcast. Donnie Fandango, Jamie Rivers, and of course our buddy Jeff Burton, still fighting his ass off. And hopefully, Jamie, the next Last Minute Blues Podcast, we will have Jeff Burton on. He wanted to do it today, but I guess there are nurses that are coming by the house, and so he just wasn't able to, make it happen. And I think dude is tired as heck after being on the morning show a bunch today.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was driving around this morning, and all of a sudden I hear our buddy Jeff. I'm like, you son of a... I'm like, get your ass back on the podcast.
Dude, it's just...
I didn't feel bad about it either.
No, not at all. And
What are you doing?
Dude, I think the thing that's crazy to me is at the beginning of this, I said to Jeff a billion times, man, listen, it's just work. Just take care of yourself, take care of your body. But I didn't really realize how much that I think work helps his mental health as he's going through all of this crap.
Oh, it is for sure. You could hear him. Look, we went and visited him, and he did a real good job that day. Listening to him today, I was like, that's a different dude. He was so, into it, and he had, Jeff Burton comments that we have loved for so many years. I was chuckling, and honestly, the guys, too, all of the Rizzuto show did a great job of juggling it. We know it's not always easy when there's not somebody in the studio, but it was awesome, man. It was awesome. I look forward to having him back on with us so bad. I know he has probably so much to say, or at least a lot of questions that he wants answered, too.
Absolutely so. And, I actually kind of feel bad here, Jamie, because there's just so much going on. And today, I legitimately feel like my head is spinning. And I don't think that I have ever, this is so terrible to say, but I don't think I've ever been less prepared for a podcast in the history of the time in which that we have been doing it. It just...
Wait a minute. You prepare?
Now you're giving people the idea that I'm not a preparer.
No, I don't prepare for these.
But you don't have to. You got the knowledge. You've got the knowledge that we're looking for. I'm just coming up with the dumb questions. You know what I mean?
Well,
my job,
Donnie.
much, much, much easier.
Donnie, you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you very much. But my head is absolutely spinning.
You know what?
Today.
Whatever you're being paid right now for this podcast, double it. That's how good I feel about what
we're
you're
doubling the 0 to 00.
00, baby.
Boy, you are
Call
a very
me
generous
when you
guy.
get to 000, all right?
So, Jamie, one thing that I did want to ask you, man, is because, so we're getting kind of towards the end of the summer for my kiddos.
Yeah.
My daughter's already started her band practice and stuff. And, my son, it's getting close enough where he's starting to do the countdown to when he's got to go back. As a parent, do you feel like the Rivers kids are ready for this to get them back in school, or what do you think? Because I can't wait to get them back in. I'm at that point of the summer.
Yeah. Well, my kids are older, right? Yeah. And
so they're kind of doing their own thing most of the time anyway.
My oldest, she's been in school throughout the summer. She does online classes. She wants to be a physician's assistant, so school's like a full-time job for her.
Good for her, man.
She's going back for her last year at Mizzou, coming up probably about 3 weeks from now. And my twin 18-year-old boys, well, we're working with them. Mm-hmm. They're graduated. They have graduated this just past year from high school, so they're looking to figure out their lives, trying to help them there. And then my youngest 13-year-old, she's amped up. She's ready to go back to school. She is a social butterfly. Mm-hmm. So, she's can't wait to see this person. Although she does see most of her friends, on a daily basis already. So, yeah, it is what it is. They're older. They kind of do their thing.
Yeah.
The only thing I do is provide rides for the youngest to school in the mornings when I can, which is usually about 3-4 times a week. And
yep.
That's about it.
I tell you what, I have been doing most of the transportation to and from band practice in the morning and then the afternoon.
What instrument does she play?
She plays the baritone, and I think, too, that there's a very good chance that she is going to learn the tuba.
Okay. Wow.
That's
a serious commitment.
Which is crazy.
She better get in the gym.
Absolutely, man. But what's so crazy that I've seen so far is, well, number one, I love it when I get there and the drum line is practicing. Every single time.
Isn't that cool?
Dude, I just feel like it's a party. And there's a parade somewhere near.
Mr. Fandango, please put your pants back on.
Right. But then also, too, what I find so amazing, man, is the commitment, and not just these particular kids, but all of these kids that are doing that are working so hard way before school even starts. Athletes, musicians, whatever. I find that really fascinating and really awesome for those kids, man, because I was not that active in high school at all. And so, like, I feel great for those kids, and I feel like they're really doing themselves huge favors by doing all this stuff now.
Absolutely. Look, it's something that they're passionate about. And what do you always tell your kids? Find something that you're passionate about and do it to the maximum of your ability. Now, whatever that ceiling is in whatever category, whether it's football, dance, band, whatever, who cares?
Yeah.
Do it the best you can. So I always look at these things like life lessons, getting you ready for the real world.
Yeah.
And, my daughter danced competitively, and then she danced for the dance team at her high school, and they put in like 30 hours of dance a week. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, my boys played hockey, and they would have a couple of practices, and they used to think, oh, they're so tired. And I was like, you boys don't know anything.
Right.
Like, it's kind of eye-opening, too. And I'm sure, with your youngest, she probably puts in hours of practice. And I just think it creates good habits, and for me, it just gets them ready for the next step in life. It's essential.
Dude, it's so badass now because my daughter's going to be a freshman in high school. And so, like, now in the morning, I just make sure she's up and everything else, she's got all of her stuff ready to roll. So I don't have to do anything. It's like, it's awesome and I like it. But then also at the same time, you know how it goes, man. You're like, oh, I remember when you were just a little thing.
You
man.
miss it, right?
Yeah.
I know. I end up with those situations now that my kids are all, older. My 13-year-old, she acts like she's, 17 or 18. That life's just moving so fast. And then every now and then I'll have a moment with my youngest where her maturity level or it drops to back to 10 years old, something that's a little kid-esque. And I just love it. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm not changing this.
Right.
Like, I don't care. I'm not going to correct it. No. I'm going to try and hang on to this as long as I freaking can.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I didn't think that I would be in this place, as it is because I love having kiddos, but man, those first couple years when they're babies, that is hard. I could never, ever do that again. But at the same time, the further I get away from it, the more I'm like, wait, we don't get to watch SpongeBob SquarePants anymore? That sucks.
You're going to start thinking about grandbabies. And I don't mean in the immediate future.
Yeah.
I'm talking about down the road where you get your fix of, being that person who can care for the little baby again, the little kid, and you're going to watch them do all this amazing stuff. I, too, hopefully not in the immediate future for me, but I do look forward to it at some point because I love kids.
Dude, I am going to spoil the Jesus out of my grandkids.
You're going to get the talking to.
Oh,
Dad, you're going to need to sit down here for a second.
That's completely fine because I've given my parents that talking to, and they continue to ignore me.
Yeah, they absolutely facepalm you, right? Talk to the hand because I am not listening.
Right.
Or they just nod their head. Okay, son.
See, that's what my mom does. She's very polite. She listens. She hears me out, and then she goes, no, I think I'm going to keep doing what we're doing because the kids love it and we love it.
Absolutely.
All right, Ma. Well, that's just fine. I'm just very stoked. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my grandparents. They passed when I was younger, and so I didn't get a lot of grandma or grandpa time. And so my kids have gotten to go on vacations with their grandparents. Hang out. Do the whole thing, and I really love that because they're going to have some of those great freaking memories.
Yeah, I agree with you. My dad's parents didn't live very long, so I kind of missed out there. But my mom's parents were so active in our lives. They've both passed, obviously, quite a while ago. But I had them until I had my grandfather until I was about 12, and then I had my grandmother on that side till I was 23, and she was awesome, man. We called her Wonder Gran. She was amazing. She put up with all of our crap, and she would she's the type of grandmother you plop her down at the table while you and your buddies are sitting there having some beers, basically, and she's hanging, and she's telling jokes and getting it and laughing.
Right.
You can't phase her.
Right.
It's like, what are we doing? And then your buddies are talking to her like she's part of the group.
Right.
I'm like, bro, it's my grandmother. What are you telling that story for?
I tell you, my grandmother. I mean, and it's not like a surprise. It happens with life experience and things. But my grandmother had the best way to give me advice, just the most caring way, but also sometimes those pop you upside the head moments where you're like, whoa, Donnie, like, well, what are you thinking here? Like, I remember when I was going through my divorce, man, and I was just ripped up. And I just sat down at the kitchen table at my grandparents' house, having a talk with my grandma, and my grandmother just kind of, said something that I had, some people have said to me about, why do you want to be with somebody so bad that doesn't want to be with you? And it was just that, it was her saying it at that moment where it just all sort of clicks in. And it's not like it was super easy after, but it certainly gave you a little boost mentally. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
and
it's
they
a
just
voice
had
that
art.
you're not used to getting that kind of advice from.
Yeah.
And so it's the same as like when you try to coach your kids or do something. It's the parents never know anything. Then somebody who is a stranger or another member of the family says the exact same thing, and boom, it makes sense. You're
Right.
like, what? Like, what?
Right.
But it's because it's a different voice, and it's something that's unusual coming from that individual. So you sit there, you absorb it, you respect it, and you're like, damn, maybe I need to listen to this.
Right. I mean, she just always had that way too of like if my brother and I were fighting a little bit too much, or if I was being mean to my sister or whatever, Grandma had those amazing looks as well that were like, oh, you know what? I don't know what's after that look, but I don't really want to find out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. My grandma used to use the fly swatter, and she didn't touch us with it. She'd pick it up and look at us. And the very first time she was like, there are no flies around. She's like, so figure it out. It's like, okay. Yep. When she picks that sucker up, I'm going to just whoop, I'm done.
Right.
We're good. I don't need to feel what that's like because of the old metal ones,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
This isn't going to be any of the newfounded, like, plastic light something or the other. No, this is made to leave a mark.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was like a bona fide sledgehammer for flies.
So I think, it's been over a week. Plenty of time has passed since Matthew Tkachuk has moved on.
I saw Matthew yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, we were doing some skill work out at the rink. Him and Brady were on the ice doing some skill work. He looks different in his Florida Panthers gear. He's already got all set up there, but he's in great spirits.
He should be. If I were getting paid that much loot, I'd be in good spirits too.
But we always associate it to that, right? But he's excited for the opportunity. He loved being in Calgary. I love the Calgary fans. Now, who knows what they think about it all right now. I'm sure they feel
jilted.
Some feel abandoned because both of their superstars left in the same offseason. But, he's looking forward to life in Florida. He really is. Like, he's got a house down there off the Strip in Fort Lauderdale, and he's so excited about it being a golf cart community to where he can take the golf cart to the practice rink.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's like, it's got this whole community is built around everybody. Basically, you park your car, and then everybody uses their golf carts type thing. So the strangest things make people happy,
Boy, and if you are Tampa and you see Florida make that acquisition, boy, oh boy, maybe that's a changing of the tides in the East over there.
It's going to be interesting for sure. I still think the Panthers have a lot of work to do. The Tampa Bay Lightning are still the big dog in the yard. They proved it last year, not in the regular season, but certainly in the postseason, sweeping the Panthers 4-0 in that series. I think it was very eye-opening to a lot of people with the Panthers front office. And I think that's why they were so aggressive in getting Matthew Tkachuk. I felt like they recognized that they needed something a little more than what they had. But no, he's excited. Again, I know I've used that word like 3 times, but he is. He's happy to be a Florida Panther. He's putting in the work. Twice a week we get on the ice and do a whole bunch of skill stuff. And him and his brother just work so hard. And this is the one thing, like, parents come up to me all the time at the rink, and they're like, little Johnny and little Susie, we want them to be Division I, scholarships. And meanwhile, sometimes the kids are like 7 years old. But it's okay. Some of them are, older, and, people are, and they say, what do they need to do? And I tell them, hey, look, you need to, on top of going to practice, I would say get at least 1 extra skill session a week, whether it's with me or somebody else, preferably with me. But let your player really refine their skills, the small things. It doesn't have to be like the crazy, like work them so hard they pass out. That's counterproductive. And I say also hard work every time they touch the ice. And the reason I say that is because the Tkachuk brothers are 2 of the hardest working people I've ever coached. And that started when they were like 14 years old. When I first started working with them, I think Matthew was like 13 or 14, and Brady was just a couple of years younger. They were first ones on the ice, last ones to leave you to kick them off. The Zamboni's coming on the ice, and they're still trying to flip pucks in the bucket. They still do it.
Right.
So instead of picking the pucks up at the end of practice, like normal people do,
Right.
they take the bucket and they line it up, and they take every single puck and gently flip it up into the bucket. So you're talking 70 pucks here. And what it is, it's another small, refined motor skill to be able to pick that puck up and gently just plop it into the bucket. Well, they do it until the last puck is picked up. Sometimes the Zamboni's like sitting there waiting, and they're like, "We don't care."
Right.
Now, especially like, "Hang on, buddy." But that's what I always impresses me about those two in particular is how hard they work, how respectful they are, and how much they listen.
Yeah.
Like still to this day, look at those guys are stars in the NHL. And I pick up things every time we have I pick up something that they just improve them just a little bit, and they listen.
Yeah.
And they go hard. And then when you tell them to pick it up, they pick it up, or slow it down. Like, whoa, they listen. It's awesome.
So I thought that I was over the Matthew Tkachuk thing, but after the last couple of minutes, I've realized that I'm completely not.
Yeah.
And I just and you know
So
what?
do you want to talk about the Blues then a little bit?
A little bit.
Whole ordeal.
But I think the things that you were just describing are the reasons that I wanted him here so bad.
Yeah. Well, he sounds a lot like a number 90 right now who wears the C for us, right?
100%, man. 100%. Was the deal really Tarasenko, Scandella, and a pick, or was that?
Well, look, nobody will ever know.
Right.
Okay. And not that I would discuss openly anything that I knew in talking to Matthew.
Yeah.
Anyways, but the deal was just not there to be had, apparently. And this is not, I'm not quoting Matthew Tkachuk. This is just me and talking to other people in the hockey world. Because quite honestly, Donnie, I don't talk to him about it.
Yeah.
And last year, Brady was holding out with Ottawa, and he was here still working with me, and people from the Ottawa media were calling me. I'm like, I got nothing for you. I don't ask him about it.
Yeah. And that's probably good. That's
His
probably why
hour
they
on
like
the ice
working with you.
me. I want it to be something that he looks forward to, and something that lets them escape the reality of it all.
Absolutely.
Right? So who would I be walking and be like, "Oh, so what about this?" or "What happened here?" They'd be like, "Really, dude?
Right.
Riv, really?" So,
and you would not be their skills coach
no,
very much longer after that.
It would get so old.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask him about it, but I think that ultimately the Blues just didn't have the salary cap space to trade the people that the Calgary Flames wanted. I'm sure they wanted Kyrou, and I imagine they wanted, like we just went through with Juan Soto, basically. I think that Calgary wanted some players, but not prospects, guys off the roster. Because look at what they did with the Panthers. They took two of their best players, added a minor league guy who's going to be pretty good as well, and then a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So that would be, you'd have to try and equate that to over here. So it'd be Kyrou, Parayko, another player, maybe Jake Neighbors, and then a first round. That's a lot,
Yeah,
man.
it sure is.
And they couldn't get to that $9.5 million as far as cap space. So I just don't think it was a marriage that could happen.
Right.
That's all. It's not. The Blues would certainly have loved to put him in a Blue Note. Matthew Tkachuk would have loved to have played here in St. Louis, but when it came down to it, and the offers were what they were, whatever it came across from other teams and the Blues. Matthew decided that Florida was a great opportunity, and he really had Florida at the top of his list.
I mean, it makes sense. It's such a fantastic team, and they are on the doorstep.
They're right there.
I mean, so I get that.
Would you argue with someone who wants to, spend the next 8 years living on the beach?
No.
In Florida?
Nah, I mean, all of those reasons that you list. I mean,
no state income tax.
I mean, that's
he never said that, but I just being me, I'm like, wait, you know how much more money you're making?
Okay, so all of that I can understand. I don't like it as a Blues fan, but I understand it. I get it. It makes sense to me. I got to tell you, man, this David Perron thing
I knew
is
you were
still.
going to go there. I was actually hoping you're going to go there.
And I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to beat the dead horse here. I understand deals get made. You can only spend so much money, all of those things. But when this week David Perron still says that he almost can't kind of believe that he's not a Blue, like this to me, Jamie, feels like one that we very much might regret.
Yeah, I feel for David because I've been in that situation. maybe not to the extent of him being in St. Louis for so long, but there are a couple of teams where I was very sad to leave. Obviously, leaving St. Louis for the first time was very difficult for me. Leaving the Red Wings when I had to ask for a trade because things weren't working out with Mike Babcock, that tore me apart.
Yeah.
I loved playing there, the fans, the ownership, my teammates, everything. And that was really hard. So for David Perron, to include his kids in there too, where he's like, they all sat at the table and kind of cried and what. It takes you behind the curtain a little bit as to what athletes go through.
Yeah.
And it's not just athletes, because I know that people lose their jobs, and I'm not disrespecting that because, trust me, I get it, man. And a lot of people lost their friggin' jobs during the pandemic. A lot of things changed. But for the most part, people don't have to pick up and leave an area and never see certain people again in their lives. For the most part. I know it happens. The military, I'm sure people go, the military. You're right. The military is very unique, as is pro sports. And so it is tough to pick up everything that you know and leave it. To have your kids who just started school, just started playing hockey, just start getting involved in the community. And it's hard.
Yeah, man.
It sucks as far as, the athlete is concerned. And the athlete's family. You cannot forget about the wife, the kids, and all the other stuff. So it was a hard read. And Jeremy Rutherford, by the way, does an incredible job over at The Athletic. If you're not subscribed, please do so. JR is awesome.
I mean, if it's literally just for the Blues content alone, it's worth it.
And he has some other great stuff, and he recycles some of the stuff that the other writers put from other areas, maybe teams we're going to play against. Either way, it's not a whole sales pitch, but you're missing out if you're not subscribed to The Athletic. When you dive into it, it's tough. It's tough. But the more I think about it, Donnie, the more I feel like the Blues had to cut bait with someone. Mm-hmm. And people go, why was it Perron then? Well, he makes $4.7 million in Detroit. Would he have taken a $4 million contract from the Blues? I don't know. Was he offered a $4 million contract from the Blues before last season started? Yes, he was. Now, there is some discrepancy whether it was a 2-year deal or a 1-year deal. And David didn't really comment about that in the Athletic article because I think Army, the Blues, have said it was a 2-year offer, and David said believed it was 1 year. Mm-hmm. So we have, he said, she said. I'm not getting in the middle of that. Yeah. My dad told me a long time ago, the peacekeeper always gets punched in the face. So
my name is Paul. This issue is between y'all.
Yeah, exactly. But that offer never being revisited, I think, tells us a couple things. That the Blues weren't comfortable or able to move some salary cap around. They desperately needed to lock up a defenseman, though. Mm-hmm. And this is where you kind of have to take your David Perron jersey off for a second. Because I love David Perron. I've known him since he got here. He's a dear friend of mine. We texted several times when he signed with the Red Wings. I am sad to not have him here. But when I look at it from constructing a roster, you look at what you went through last year without a top 4 left-handed shot defenseman. It was a merry-go-round.
It was rough times.
It was rough, and there's no way you beat the Minnesota Wild if you don't go out and acquire Nick Vladdy. I know the counter argument is, well, look at what David Perron did. Totally agree. But what you're saying then is each player was just as important to the process of winning that series. But moving forward, Nick Vladdy's a lot younger, and a lot like 3 years younger. That's a lot in pro sports. And you've locked up your D-core now. Your top 4, you're set. And you got Mikkola. He signed a nice little deal. You got Bortuzzo. You still have Scandella. Whether people love him, hate him, or indifferent, he's available. He's an NHL caliber defenseman. And you have Perunovic, who is a question mark. Not sure if he can play every day yet. You got Jordan Binnington between the pipes. You got Thomas Greiss backing him up. Pretty good duo. You had 9 20-goal scorers last year. You have 8 right now. Mm-hmm. I think that's what Doug Armstrong did. He said, we kind of had an embarrassment of riches for 20 goal scorers. And I think Army and the Blues believe their style of game is more directed towards having a solid defense core, and especially one who can move the puck up the ice like Nick Leddy can, and one who can break the puck out like Nick Leddy can. So I guess at the end of the day, it wasn't David Perron versus Nick Leddy. It was, we need to solidify our D core less than we need another 20-goal scorer.
Well, it makes sense. It's not what I like to hear, but it makes sense.
And I know there's a lot of people listening right now that'll be like, well, I don't like it. I don't like it either.
Yeah.
I don't. But if I take my Perron jersey off and put on my GM's cap, I see why it happened. If Doug Armstrong had $5 more million of cap space, David Perron would be in a Blues jersey next year.
Easy.
But he didn't. And at the same time, who knows what other stuff going on behind closed doors is happening. You still have Vladimir Tarasenko. Are you keeping him, or were you trying to trade him?
That's my next question.
If you weren't, then that's $7.5 million that everybody thinks, well, you just get rid of that. Well, no, you can't. It's on the cap. You owe this guy $7.5 million. And trade him to Calgary. He would have said no. He has a no trade clause.
Right, not an option.
Trade him here. No, he would have said no. The only option I thought that might have been available was to the New York Islanders. But apparently they have the behind closed doors hush-hush handshake deal with Nazem Kadri because Lou Lamoriello is trying to move some salary cap to fit Nazem Kadri. So if that's the case, if you're trying to trade Tarasenko there, Lou's like, not interested. Why? No reason.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
But right. Yeah. I mean.
So your options were limited.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy. So you, hockey guy, Jamie Rivers.
Uh-oh.
Game 1 of the 2022 St. Louis Blues season.
Yep.
Is Vladimir Tarasenko in a Blues jersey?
I think he absolutely is.
At this point, it's just probably too late in the game for a big move to be made for him to go.
You only move a guy like that if you're going to make your team better. What are you going to do to move him? Where are you moving him to make your team better?
Right.
That's real. Don't say, Connor McDavid. Okay, not a reality.
Right, yeah.
And quite honestly, Vladdy probably wouldn't take a trade to the Oilers.
Right.
So when you look at it, you have over a point-a-game guy last year. You parted ways with David Perron, who is a big piece of your power play, a big piece of your offense. You're not going to just part ways with another guy like that. Like
you can't.
No, and you have to assume that Vladimir Tarasenko, he's going to give you every bit of what he gave you last year because he's going to be an unrestricted free agent.
Time to make that big time money, buddy.
People are probably looking at it going, okay, that was a hell of a year for him. Let's see if he can do it again.
Boy, and if he does, he's going to get paid.
If he does that, Donnie, look how good it helps the Blues. Look how much it helps the Blues. Another 80-point season or 82 points for Vladimir Tarasenko, that means your team's scoring, man.
Right.
That means Robert Thomas has probably 80-plus points. It means Booch probably has 70-plus points because they play on a line together.
Right.
And you got O'Reilly and Kyrou and Shen and Barbashev. I think Ivan Barbashev's the interesting one in all this.
Yeah.
Is he truly a 26-goal scorer?
I mean,
I don't know. I said last year, before the season started, I said he's a potential 20-goal scorer.
Mm-hmm.
I viewed him more as a 14, 15-goal kind of guy. I know it sounds crazy. Well, 5 goals. It is a big difference. And then he got to 26. So is his median at 20? Is he a 20, 21-goal scorer? Or is he potentially a 30-goal scorer? I don't think it's the latter. I don't think he's a 30-goal scorer. But based on what he did last year, along with opportunity, to which he'll continue to get opportunity, he can easily get that 20-goal mark again. So, but it's interesting to look at it and go, is that real?
Yeah.
Or is that fake?
Well, and then also, too, I also forget about the Jake Neighbors that's on the doorstep.
Yeah, but I don't want to go counting on that. Okay?
Well, no, you can't.
No, not for you, just our listeners. Like, people are like already got him slotted in playing right wing with Ryan O'Reilly. And it's like, pump the brakes. He is a fantastic young player, and he did a good job last year. You could tell that he was a little bit out of his league at the start of the season. But don't count on that guy. It's gravy. If you get something out of Jake Neighbors next year that's like 10-plus goals, that's gravy. Enjoy it.
Do you anticipate him being here?
I think he's going to get every shot out of training camp. There's a spot here for him to lose, basically. But you have to remember, you got Nathan Walker on a one-way contract. You got Toropchenko, so that'll help Jake Neighbors too, because Toropchenko's out for the first, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, until like
season.
December or something like that.
So that'll help. It'll open up a spot, but you also have Logan Brown, who's on a one-way contract for next year.
Klim
Kostin's on a one-way contract. Now, Klim Kostin, I think he's got a lot of work to do, but Logan Brown has done pretty much all he can in the American Hockey League. Nathan Walker, same kind of thing. He did so much in the American Hockey League, they didn't even send him back there at the end of the season last year. They're like, just go home.
Right.
And they still went to the Calder Cup finals. And so when you look at the guys that they have available for these spots, there is a big competition going on. You got Noel Achari that you picked up. He's going to be in your bottom 6. You have Josh Levo, who won the Calder Cup last year. He's going to be somewhere in your bottom 6. So there's healthy competition there. So Jake Neighbors is not an automatic. Like, if I'm going to barely play this guy, Donnie,
then you're going to send him to the AHL where he can play all the time.
Yeah, in every situation. Yeah. Power play, penalty kill, goalie pulled, either to get a goal or to stop a goal. He is going to play everything so that he's playing against men. First of all, he's not playing junior hockey anymore, where the oldest kids are 20. Now the youngest kids are 20 in the American League.
Right.
And then you go up. And so that to me is how you build a long-term NHL players. You don't just, if they're not ready, you don't just throw them in there and say, well, let's hope for the best. And Jake Neighbors doesn't profile like Robert Thomas did. So when people, when Army made the decision to keep Thomas around, one, he kind of had to, because going back to junior would not have been effective for Robert Thomas. Mm-hmm. But Robert Thomas is a more dynamic hockey player. He's not going to rely upon his physical strength to produce offense or to do things. Where Jake Neighbors is more of I don't want to say Braden Shen, because that is a very heavy comparison.
Right.
But Ivan Barbashev type player, where he is good along the wall, good in front of the net, will finish his hits, will get involved physically. So if that's the case, you've got a boy amongst men now, it's a lot harder, more difficult.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about one name before we wrap up. Actually, 2 names. I don't like either one of them coming out of my mouth, but they're good.
Boy.
Obviously, over the course of the last few months, we have seen a major sea change in Chicago, and they're going to go through the whole gigantic rebuild. And so with that is the possibility of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane potentially going somewhere else, because I don't think either one of them are in for the full rebuild. How do you see that shaking out, Jamie? And then do you see, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you see them moving Seth Jones as well? Because they just signed him to that huge deal last offseason, which now seems completely stupid.
Okay, so let's start with Jonathan Toews. He openly, I can't remember if it was The Athletic or another publication out of Chicago, but quoted, I'm paraphrasing, of course, here, that he was told it's a 5-year plan. He has a hard time envisioning himself being a part of a 5-year plan.
Right.
So basically saying, I don't really think I want to be here. Mm-hmm. That being said, Jonathan Toews' play has dipped. He had the illness 2 years ago, and last year he was okay, but he's making $10.5 million. So the Chicago Blackhawks would probably have to eat a good portion, minimum of half of that contract if they were to move him. If Jonathan Toews is available for 4.5 or 5.5 million, I'd pick him up. Mm-hmm. Maybe not here in St. Louis, because I don't think you need him.
Right.
You have your center ice position taken care of. You have your leader, right? But if I was a team that was building, like maybe even Ottawa Senators team, where you need another leader in there, a strong guy to help support a Brady Tkachuk in a locker room, maybe that's a fit. Maybe the Montreal Canadiens. Maybe somewhere, maybe even the Toronto Maple Leafs, who need another guy there. Mm-hmm. I think that he does get moved. Obviously, if he wants to, I think he does. And then Patrick Kane, that guy's almost as good as ever. I mean, he's still the dishing magician out there. He's hard to hit. You can't, power play machine out there. He's also making $10.5 million. I don't know if somebody picks up that. I don't know. Well, first of all, hardly any team has the room for it. So there would have to be some kind of a 3-way deal here to where Patrick Kane is traded to the Arizona Coyotes. Chicago retains half of the salary, and then Arizona would then trade him to, I don't know, the LA Kings. Let's just say that. And Arizona eats half of the salary. So now you're paying Patrick Kane like $2.5 million or $2 million.
Man, which is a steal.
And he's going to put up 70 to potentially, depending on where he goes, between 70 to 90 points for you.
Do you see him potentially being a fit on the aisle with the Islanders? Because that's one I've heard kicked around a little bit.
I could. I also see the Rangers kicking the tires on that. But again, all of these teams we're talking about
are up to the cap.
Yeah, they'd have to be serious salary retention from the Blackhawks as well as another team, I believe.
Wow.
But those two have something to offer. I would add them to my lineup. If you take the dollar value away from them, the cap hit, I'd add them to my lineup any day of the week. Again, I don't think we need a Jonathan Toews type guy, but if he was for free, I'd take him. I'll find a spot for him.
Right. I just tell you, as a St. Louis sports fan, seeing the Chicago Cubs struggle and the Blackhawks struggle at the same time is just something that warms the insides of my heart. It really
if
does.
You're a Chicago fan right now, are you going like, what the bleep?
Oh, dude, well, I mean, are you unrealistically hanging your hopes on the Bears and the Bulls at that point? You know what I mean?
Well, if the Bears go 500, like, I'll take it.
Right. You will be ecstatic
the
with
Bears,
that 500.
New head coach and all that stuff, they're like, this is great. We can suck. We can be half good, and we're going to be awesome.
Dude, it'll be fine. We'll just filter in with the rest of the terrible sports that are going on in this town.
Oh, I forgot Seth Jones. You asked me about Seth Jones.
Yeah.
So he signed that juggernaut deal, like $9.5 million a year. Nobody's taking that right now. Seth Jones did not have a great year last year. Now, I shouldn't say nobody's taking that. Somebody would take it. But again, it's a cap space thing. And I can't imagine Seth Jones wants to be in Chicago right now. Signed an 8-year deal, and you know that 5 of those 8 years are going to be miserable for you?
And he's a young guy, too.
He is, and he's a very good defenseman. Like, if somebody were to pick him up, like a competitive team, he is going to absolutely bolster your decor. He's an all-star defenseman. And now he's going to be rotting in Chicago, passing the puck to people we don't even know.
Oh, man. Boy, I mean,
in front of like 7,000 people.
I'm sorry. This just makes me laugh.
I giggle too. I love it. I'm like, screw you, Blackhawks. Good.
Dude, I just remember the very first time that I was swore at as a child by a grown-up. And that was at the old Chicago Stadium.
Oh, the older one. Go ahead. I have a story about that in a second.
So I don't remember the year exactly, but we had this amazing weekend where we got to see Michael Jordan's Bulls on a Saturday night and see the Blues and the Hawks on a Sunday night. Again, old Chicago Stadium. So early in this particular game, Cujo goes behind the net to play a puck, and his stick gets caught in the goal. And, I mean, before we even know it, it's like 3-0 Hawks. Place is going crazy. I'm like 11 years old, screaming my head off in the rafters for the Blues. And sure enough, I had a Blackhawks fan, really drunk, probably in his 50s, tell me to sit down and shut the F up. And that sort of cemented. I mean, I already didn't like him at that point, but when that happens, you're like, oh, yeah, screw you guys forever.
Yeah, that was a rough spot to play. Okay, like the United Center where they play now is beautiful.
Right.
I hate to say it, but it's beautiful. It's an awesome arena.
Yeah.
But the old Chicago Stadium, I don't know if I've ever told this story. I think I have. I don't know if it was here on the fast lane, but my very first game at the Chicago Stadium, the locker room was downstairs. So the door opened behind the net, and then you had to walk down, 8-10 steps to get to the locker room. The steps were like 4 inches deep. So when you went down, you had to like almost turn sideways because otherwise half your skate was like going to make you fall down the stairs. So I'm coming off the ice after warm up at my very first game at Chicago Stadium. And, guys are still kind of shooting pucks because warm up guys leave the ice kind of on their own time. So the guy behind the net has to like look, you make eye contact, kind of like, hey, next time I come around here, pop the door open. I'm going to make a nice little quick exit so that I don't get hit in the back of the head with a puck.
Right.
And so I make my loop, and the guy like ka-chink, like opens the door, and I give a little T stop, little shh, just enough, and I'm like, okay, bing, 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 down the first couple of steps, and then wow, I get a full glass of beer in my face. The guy like leaned over and was like in my face. So natural reaction is what?
You're gonna fight him.
Well, okay, that's.
Well,
okay.
you got to wipe the beer out of your face.
But when someone throws something in your face, you like jump back or you fall back.
Yeah.
Like you try to
on
avoid
those small stairs.
I'm on those small steps and then right to the bottom, laying there in Dirt, spit, beer, and other things. Dirty jersey, pants, back of me, all covered, and then this guy laughing. Oh. And I'm trying to get back up, and now there's like security there. He did get moved. I doubt they kicked him out. They probably just said, dude, just go over here.
Don't let him see you anymore.
Hey, nice throw, by the way. Right. But that was my first experience, and guys are like, tough one, eh, kid? Like, yeah, it's tough.
If there's one thing that I can remember about that place, and again, it's been a long time, I just remember it literally, legitimately feeling dirty. I mean, it was just very old, and so that's really all that it was. But man, I remember going to the bathroom going, oh, and I was used to the arena, for God's sake, so it's not like I was on a very high level of sports.
It's not like you were used to a Rolls Royce. Yeah. The very first, I used to think, why does everybody get so, impressed by the national anthem here? Oh my God. So first game, again, same day, different time, of course. We're standing there, and the national anthem starts to play, and everybody gets up, and they all start cheering. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It was so loud. Every hair on my body stood up, and then asbestos started falling from the ceiling. Crumbling. And I'm like, oh my God, this is Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Right. I've been put into the pit. The Roman Colosseum. They want my blood. Where's the lion?
The asbestos snow.
Yeah, we just fall down and like, oh, it's so beautiful. No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
No, it's not. Well, hopefully the next time that we can the next time we reconvene the Last Minute Blues podcast.
Would you like to buy a vowel, sir?
Yes, I would. A couple, please. Hopefully we will have Jeff Burton joining us. That is our hope.
Looking forward to it, man. Big
Absolutely. Time. For Jamie Rivers, Donnie Fandango, Jeff Burton, it is the Last Minute Blues podcast. As always, thank you for listening, and let's go Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast. Hear more at 1057thepoint.com. Powered by Together Credit Union, empowering you to achieve your financial goals.